Welcome to Lawyers Who Learn, where we explore how attorneys' engagement in lifelong learning fuels their growth. Join us to uncover these journeys and gain insights for your legal career.
Dallie, what's going on?
Hey, how are you, David?
I'm doing good. So let's talk about you and all the different things that you do in your day-to-day activities. And more importantly, how that has helped you learn and grow as an individual in your career, and just to level set what Lawyers Who Learn is about. So there's, as a program attorney at Lawline, we have about 1,500 courses that are completed every single day. And there's a whole community or ecosystem around these courses. There's the program attorneys who work with the faculty, there's a faculty who teach it, there's the attorneys who watch it, and then there's attorneys who not only learn through continual education, but they do other things besides just watching formal courses. They do things outside of practicing law or taking courses. And I see you as one of those attorneys. So let's introduce yourself a little bit, and in the guise of what makes you different and how you've learned and grown in your career, tell us a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. So I got my law license in Texas in 2018. I'm a Texas girl through and through, born and raised, and went to all schooling here in Texas, and have always been involved in a lot of different aspects, avenues of life. And when I added my law degree, that didn't change. It just added another aspect to get involved in. I got involved right off the bat with my local young lawyer organization here in Dallas. And from there, I grew within the Dallas bar community and the bar community in general, mainly by just asking questions and raising my hand. I remember my first meeting, they asked, and the Dallas Young Lawyers, if anybody was interested in helping with CLEs. And I said, I like to learn, I like to talk. Why not knowing that's not what the CLE world is really about. And I've never looked back, quite honestly. I got my start in the CLE world, in the bar service world, and here I am today, 5-6 years later, doing it day in and day out, learning from the best and the brightest. I always like to say, when I'm speaking with potential faculty or someone asks me what I do for my job, I get to day in and day out learn from attorneys that are so passionate about what they do and in the top of their game and in their field. And that's something that's really special and that I take with me throughout my career, but also in my personal life. I always try to seek out those individuals who may themselves not consider themselves a expert, but I sure do, in finding those individuals and learning from them.
You have a hunger and desire to be part of lots of different bar associations. And here, as you're answering questions, and this is what I'm going to keep as I'm refining the mission and do more and more interviews with Lawyers Who Learn, is I like to think about, yes, we might have 1,500 courses completed, but I like to think of 10 attorneys. I would like to think of 10 attorneys reaching out, whether through social media or through email. They can email lwl@lawline.com, Lawyers Who Learn at lawline.com, and sharing how they were inspired by something you said to learn or do something new. So in that guise of wanting somebody to follow your experience and your lead, tell us how you went about finding bar associations to contribute to be part of, and how that, take us through one, maybe the first one you started, and what was one of the first things you learned in that process in the guise of somebody else was like, you know what, maybe I haven't ever volunteered or participated in a bar association. I don't know if I have time. Why should they do it in helping them learn in their practice? And how did you do it?
Yeah, so specifically from a young lawyer perspective, you get a lot of opportunities within the bar and bar service that you wouldn't get in your day-to-day career. And the way I found the bar organizations that I am currently in and have been in is really finding those individuals that inspire me, that I want to be like, and see what they did. I know that's cheesy and that's something that you might hear quite often, but ask them what helped them in their career, what helped them in their bar service. And it always came back, in my experience, to a bar organization or a specific point within their career where they were given an opportunity to see and be a part of something that they might not have been able to be a part of, whether that's volunteering at a pro bono event, whether that was being a part of a CLE, speaking in front of people that you might not have gotten the opportunity to do in your career for years or decades down the line. And the bar really provides that for you and gives you that opportunity to lead. Right now in the world, if you're anything less than a partner, you really don't have a leadership position within your firm. And so the ability to lead within other lawyers within a semi-controlled, low-stakes environment is what really propels you in your professional career once you get those partnership tracks or you get that power, the position of power in which you're leading individuals. And a lot of people lack that skill until they get to that high level. And then it's a lot of a steep learning curve and a lot of mistakes and missteps that you could have learned earlier in your career through an organization like a bar service.
What's the last thing you learned in volunteering by leading others in one of these bar associations? Because I like recency. I like something, because part of learning is it's not what you learn in law school or 5 years ago. It's constant. There's always new things. And so I'm always curious, or most recently, it doesn't have to be the last, something that's sort of, and it could have been a painful experience too. It didn't have to be a positive.
Yeah, the last thing I learned, or one of the most impactful things I've learned recently was the way individuals view the idea of teaching or being ready to teach. I am always the first person to try and raise my hand for in things that interest me or that I'm passionate about. And I recently learned that a lot of people feel the need to be approached with those opportunities. They feel the need that why would they raise their hand if no one's asked them directly to teach something or to do a CLE? And that was interesting to me because the more I learn about myself and the people around me, the more I'm enamored by the motivation behind individuals, whether in the law practice or not. And so hearing that aspect of this individual tell me I could never teach something like that. No one's ever came to me and said, Jane Doe, you're amazing. I want you to teach this. It was fascinating to me and eye-opening.
So what's the takeaway for somebody listening who also feels that way? Whether they're a young attorney or experienced attorney, what's their action step from that? And what do they do?
Really do some self-reflection on what you're passionate about. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable coming forward if it's not something that you want to do, but don't necessarily wait for opportunities to find you, because while there are a lot of success stories of people who opportunity did find them, it's a lot about what you create. And particularly in the legal profession and narrowing it down to the bar association, it's a lot of making an opportunity and taking that, even if you're not ready. And a lot of people, my mantra is you'll never be ready. And if you wait until you're ready, it'll pass you by, the opportunity, the moment. And that may be something that you are okay with in the moment. And that is a fine example of letting it pass you by. Try it. Never.
Have you taught at one of the associations before?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I got my.
So give me an example of, well, first share the 3 associations you're currently participating in and what you do. And then I would love to hear a story of what you taught and how that came about.
Yeah, so I am currently heavily involved in the Dallas Association of Young Lawyers, which is the local bar here in my area. I'm also very involved in the American Bar Association Young Lawyers Division. And then I had a very involved career with the Texas Young Lawyers Association, state, local, and national, all covered there. And what was the second part of the question?
The second part was, where did you teach? And because I think one of the themes, obviously, this is what we do for a living. I also embody it in myself, and is a theme that will keep coming up in these episodes, that teaching is one of the best forms of learning, because you have to clearly understand what you're talking about. You have to write it down. You have to communicate it. You have to put it out there. And it's a really great area to grow. So I was curious what topic you chose to teach on, like why, and like the story behind that, in the hopes, again, somebody listening can take some action steps on how they can go about that in their local bar association or somewhere else.
Yeah, so I've taught on a lot of different topics within all of these organizations, but probably my favorite and one that's most closest to my heart is the ones that directly impacted my life that I can share. So whether that's an alternative career path to being a practicing lawyer, or how do you grow within the legal practice as a non-traditional lawyer, I've taught on topics that range from creating the path that you want as an associate back in my associate life, as well as figuring out ways to involve pop culture within continuing legal education. But my favorite is probably there's no one right way to be a lawyer. It's something I'm so passionate about, and it's something that really drives me. And I see it so much through the profession I'm currently in and through the bar associations of this want and desire to expand beyond the legal profession while using your JD, and figuring out and narrowing down how that journey looked like for me and being able to express that to other individuals. For example, there's a big part of the program that I give that talks about, you've decided that you are okay not being a traditional lawyer, but how do you go on LinkedIn and search for something without the word attorney? My whole life, my 5 years of being a lawyer, every job you looked at, everything you applied for was attorney or a lawyer or legal whatever. And I remember staring at the screen, my LinkedIn, being like, I could do anything with my JD, but I don't know where to start. And so finding those moments within your life and reflecting on that and being able to express that in a way to individuals as you teach is something that I have such immense pride in and brings me so much joy. Not because I think it's something that is proprietary or that no one's ever thought about before, but because I'm really reaching those individuals that might not be seen or felt that before.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into that one program, and then we're going to circle back to the associations, because the theme that I see developing in this podcast today is, one, how do you teach, even if you're not confident that you can teach or just putting something together. But I also want to go back to how you're so active in these associations and just dissect how you do that, how you find the time, and some of your challenges with that. But to the program, I think you said it was the alternative career to lawyers. How long did it take you to put that together?
It took me a long time to put that program together because there was a lot of self-doubt in the thought of, this is...
What's a long time?
Probably about 4 months, 3 to 4 months.
Okay. And that's like starting, stopping, continuing. Yeah. How long was the program?
It's an hour.
So I said teaching is the best form of learning. Give me some bullets of things that you learned about yourself, about that topic as you're presenting it. How did it help you think about it differently?
Yeah, so I learned I'm not unique. I'm not different. And that's not to say that I think I am or I was, but it's actually more of a realization of the profession in of itself, and the reflection of individuals are going through this at a rate that I think our profession may not be aware of, because they don't know those next steps. They may have these intrinsic feelings of, what do I do if I don't want to be a practicing attorney? And they just get stuck in that limbo and just continue practicing, and they wake up one morning and their partner. So I learned that I'm not unique and I'm not different. I learned, however, the way that I can express those views and those thoughts is unique and different. And I come across that theme a lot in my life. I've always been a part of the world where I think that if you just work hard enough, it'll happen for you. And that's not to say that I don't think that can happen. But what I mean by that is, I've always worked extremely hard for, like, math didn't come easy to me. English didn't come easy to me. Law school wasn't a walk in the park for me. So everything I've always had to be very intentional and work hard at. And so when something or someone tells me I'm good at something, my first thought is, everyone else could be that way if they just wanted it and worked hard enough. I learned that's not the case. Some people just truly don't want to do that, and they just don't have that passion or that desire. Two sides of the same coin there. And I learned during that process, my thinking changed in the way that I view learning. And what I mean by that is, when someone is teaching me something new and I process it and digest it, my first thought is, how could I have learned that information for myself better? How could they may have skipped step 2 and 3 or 1. I wish I would have known 1 so that 2 and 3 would have made sense. And that's where I start with all of my teaching that I do, all of the learning that I do, is I start from the position of, how could it have been better for me? And then hopefully it's better for someone else.
There's so many.
I know that was a lot.
No, it was great. Okay. Try to give me short, quick answers to these questions so we can keep going forward. But like you said, you learned you're not unique. how did teaching a course or preparing to teach that course, where'd you get that? How did you get that insight from that?
A lot of research. When you do your research, you learn that there are other individuals that have the idea for this topic and that have the similar thoughts that you are.
Totally. You said I learned what I am different in is how I express it in a unique and different way, or your own voice. To me, part of what makes teaching so powerful is that component, right? The ability of what make your own spin on something that's been talked about for 100 years, maybe, right? How did you learn, or how hard was that for you to do the research, take your experience, take your research, combine it, and then communicate it in a way that you said you wish you taught it? Like, to me, that's the most rewarding part, but also sometimes the most difficult part to get it right. And again, trying to think of those 10 people, those 10 attorneys who want to teach a course, who want to volunteer like you are, but how did they, what was your biggest challenge with that, maybe, or an aha moment on how you were able to synthesize that together?
Yeah, I started believing the individuals around me.
Again?
I started believing the individuals around me when they were listening to me talk through this process of teaching this course. And they were saying that's very unique, that's very different, that I've never thought of it that way. And up until that point, even in your introduction, when you introduced me and you said you're involved in all these things, I caught myself being like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But when you start believing what those individuals are telling you, that's the aha moment, or even faking that you believe it.
Yeah, totally. I can 100% relate to that. Like, when I share, even with people at Lawline, like even this podcast, like imposter syndrome around, I haven't done this since my beginning of my career in 2007 when I did the entrepreneurship podcast, and that led to so many great things. But there's so much more than interviewing when you do a podcast. It's the whole setup process. And I was like sharing my imposter syndrome about it. And somebody at Lawline was like, you have an imposter syndrome about this? That's ridiculous. I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. But yeah, there's so much that you do. But so that's the credibility that you have good experience. But what about actually simplifying the message? Was that hard for you? Is there themes that you came up with? I don't know if this was early enough where you're able to use ChatGPT or AI to help you figure out those themes. Was there anything there, any learnings you can share with anybody else?
Yeah, I had a really great opportunity to hone that message through my campaign with the Texas Young Lawyers Association.
Tell us about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of my main message, my cornerstone when I was campaigning, was there's no one right way to be a lawyer. And every young lawyer in the state of Texas, everywhere, deserves a seat at the table. And through that message and through the meetings of thousands of young lawyers, quite frankly, I was able to really hone what that message meant to me and learn what that message meant to other individuals that were similarly situated. And that really is what drives the passion behind that particular program, was listening to young lawyers tell me, thank you for representing me. Thank you for being the individual who isn't saying that you've got to bill hours to be an attorney, that you don't deserve a seat at the table if you don't do X, Y, and Z, or you're not going to be a partner. So I had the really unique opportunity to drill down and really hone that message for myself and get that feedback from others.
So first of all, thank you for that transition to that, because I was going to ask you about that. So what I hear you saying, though, and this is great advice, like whether it was with your friends or colleagues, you just practiced a lot and kept trying and trying. And here you actually were campaigning, which I would love to learn more about, and some of the challenges and growths from that, because certainly that is one of the scarier things I can see anyone doing. And so as you heard feedback, you kept changing it and improving it. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. My message became clearer because of those around me that felt the same way I did. And it became easier to hand speech, per se, you would think, of getting that message across.
I can totally relate to that. And I just, again, reflecting to Lawline and the podcast, is my mission is to inspire and empower 1 million attorneys, right? Every attorney to learn something new this week, this hour, this month, and recognize while CLE has sometimes a bad reputation because it's mandatory and people are super busy, there is a true purpose And it doesn't have to be COE. It's just a true purpose to continuing to learn and grow and finding the time. So we're going to talk about two more things, and then I'm going to let you get back to your day. The second thing, which I'll say is like, how do you find the time? But we're going to do that last. Let's talk about this campaign. Tell us a little bit about what you were campaigning for. And again, sticking with the theme, what were some of the mistakes that you learned along the way as you were campaigning?
Yes. In the state of Texas, everything is bigger. And that includes our bar service and specifically the president of the Young Lawyers section of the Texas Bar. And then also, of course, there's what we call the Big Bar or the State Bar of Texas. They're one and the same. They just are different arms of the same organization. And as a part of that, each year, 2 individuals are chosen through a selection process to run as president-elect of the Texas Young Lawyers. And many of your listeners here will say, yeah, we've seen people run for bar presidents. Not quite like this. We get allocated thousands of dollars to run this campaign. We can utilize different resources that we have, and it's a month-long campaign throughout the entire state of Texas. And that kicks off about 3 months ahead of time, where you are chosen and you are thrown into this whirlwind. I have no political aspirations before. I have no political aspirations now. So this is was a whole new world for me, learning to create a team of individuals that were my campaigns team. I had a campaign manager. I had to learn photography, find a videographer, create my brochure and my website. So it's this whole crash course on running a campaign. It's obviously not political in any means. So the way that you create your platforms, what you're passionate about, and then there's the whole avenue of scheduling that you have to do. So it was a crash course on that. And it was honestly the first time in my life where I was in a position to instruct and lead people like every day in and day out for money. I am a leader in a lot of organizations, but it's purely volunteer work, and you do it out of the kindness of your heart and you're passionate about. This was the first time in my life that I had led a team that I was paying, that I had to instruct, that I had to lead, and that I had a specific vision for. And so much learning around that happened, and what you want that to look like, what you have this vision, and how you make that come to life and translate that to a team.
Can you think of any specific learnings?
Yeah. How do you communicate with individuals that are those you have that kind of relationship with, right? This is not someone that has ever done anything like this before. Sometimes my campaign people had done campaigns in the past of my prior opponents, but this was the first time that I was having to communicate with individuals and be like, this is a really crazy experience that I'm going through, and this is what I need. And I need it tomorrow. And if I don't get it tomorrow, we're going to have to figure out ways around that. So the communication skills alone was such a huge learning opportunity.
Totally.
I'm sorry.
No, it's the total communication is 100% there. What was it? Is there anything else that, just before I move past this point, anything else specific come to mind that you had to really work on?
Yeah, my vision. I had to really find confidants in people that I trusted to surround myself with and be very vulnerable and open with them and be like, these are my platforms. Are they stupid? What feedback do you have? How do you think they'll be perceived? And really being open to whatever they said, because at that point you're in an echo chamber and you need to get out of that. And that's a really hard lesson to learn and a tough pill to swallow when you are so passionate about certain things and you hope that they work out.
Anything else come to mind? Because this is such a unique experience. Again, I'm trying to think of the person who maybe the attorney who doesn't necessarily want to do this, but everybody has to lead teams. They're volunteer or paid, right? Anything else specific, top 3 things or whatever that come to mind? That you said communication, you said vision, and I get where you were coming from there. I felt your pain as you were trying to do that. Anything else to share?
You really, during my experience in particular, but during any uncomfortable experience, and it doesn't have to be something on the level and scale that I did, but you really learn about yourself. And it's really important, in my opinion, that you reflect of that internal learning. You don't just move past it. You don't just say, oh, I would have done X, Y, and Z 6 months ago, but because I am who I am today, I'm doing A, B, and C. it was important to me in my professional growth journey, because I knew even win, lose, or draw, my life would continue after this, that I understood what had changed during that time. And I learned from myself and what happens. I always tell people when they ask me these questions, you never know what you're going to be like when the fire gets hot, your feet are put to the fire. What does that look like? And you always hope you're going to act a certain way, but you never really know until that happens. So take time to reflect when that does happen to you and figure out how to learn from that.
You said win, lose, or draw. So can you share sort of the results and what your biggest takeaway was from that?
Yeah, so I did not win the election, but my biggest takeaway was all of the growth that I did during that 3-month time period. It was an amazing experience. I would not trade it for the world. I would not do it again, but I would not trade the experience for what I went through and what I did. And it was such an incredible way to really understand the demographic that I'm passionate about. So young lawyers and helping young lawyers, but it was an incredible way to really learn about myself and figure out what I want to shape the rest of my life, quite frankly, to look based upon those experiences and those lessons that I've learned.
Now going to the last question. Obviously now you're in an alternative legal career, but you were practicing before and you were still doing all of this. Like, to somebody who is inspired by what you're doing and what you've done, but as we know, legal careers, many people are overworked, underpaid, very stressed out, and add on top of that your personal responsibilities. What are some specific things you can share that were helpful for you, that the 10 people in my mind who want to participate in a bar association they haven't before, how are you able to find the time to do that, and how can they?
So I want to start by saying I understand the struggles behind finding the time to do that. And I want to say that because when I was practicing, I did most of my, if not all of my bar service under the cloak of darkness. I worked so hard and put so many hours on the board because the last thing I ever wanted my partners to say was, you didn't reach hours because you're involved in X, Y, and Z. And that was really a driving force behind me finding a new job, quite frankly, was that I loved bar service and I'm passionate about serving young lawyers. But I also, that wasn't sustainable. And so finding a job where you're valued and that is valued is so important. So to your career and to your well-being, if you're interested in being in bar service, and I don't want to say that to say I have a lot of friends who bill hours and are amazing and love their job and they work in the bar service profession. But what is the key is that your employer, your supervisor supports that and sees the value in that. Because there's nothing worse than trying to tell yourself the value and then having to try to tell someone that's doing your paycheck the value of what you're doing. So that's first and foremost what I would say. But it's really about finding your niche and your people, because this work that you do is important and finding that is important, but being around those individuals who also are doing that work and also see the value in that work outside of your billing hours or you being a lawyer is really what keeps me personally coming back. And when you find those individuals, you'll know, because it'll be like, oh, I got an email from so-and-so. Do I prefer to answer this right now? No, but I'm excited that I'm working with Jane Smith on this. And that's an incredible feeling. And that is something that is, community to me is so important for young lawyers in general, but also for the bar service profession and why you do what you do. So finding the time to me is really drilling down on what I'm passionate about and being, and this is something that I'm working on, especially in the last few months, so clear when that doesn't cross over, when the work doesn't cross over with my passion, and not feeling the guilt of saying that.
I think saying no is one of the hardest things to do when there's so many opportunities coming, because someone like you who puts it out there, you will have a lot of things coming back to you. Let's end on this last question, because I love what you were saying about finding the niche that speaks to you. And because learning is as much as communicating with others and learning from them, and doing that as much as watching a CLE course by yourself. what do you wish you learned sooner when you were trying to find the right niche for you? Because I'm like you said, I'm sure you took some time to figure that out. Is there anything actionable steps to the person or the 10 people who we want to find that niche for them today?
I wish I would have stopped fighting it. I think that we have this tendency as lawyers and as high performing individuals to think that we know what we should or shouldn't be interested in and what we should or shouldn't be passionate about. And instead of letting for lack of a better term, the universe guide me to what I was passionate about or interested in, I fought against it. And I thought, no, I can't be passionate about this because no one I know is passionate about this. So that's crazy. I need to be passionate about this portion of the law or this thing in my life. And once I started surrounding myself by individuals who wanted the best for me and saw things in me that I didn't see in myself, I started to stop fighting that and just really embrace that, yeah, you're unique in this passion because you don't know anybody, but a quick Google search will find all these other people that are passionate about it too. And that is what I wish I would learn sooner, is let the universe guide you. Let your guard down, let whatever you're interested in be your guide, and then lean into that instead of leaning into this picturesque, perfect attorney or young lawyer that we sometimes are fed.
Dallie Franks, thank you so much for your insights. Every time I speak to you, I learn something new, and I know if I get people to watch this, those people who did watch or listen definitely got some value. We will also be taking snippets of it and putting on social media, so we'll see how that goes as well. So thanks again, and if you got some value, make a comment or send an email to lwl@lawline.com so I can see the impact of those 10 people that are always in my head.
Thank you.
Welcome to Lawyers Who Learn, where we explore how attorneys' engagement and lifelong learning fuels their growth. Join us to uncover these journeys and gain insights for your legal career.